Hello, Tech fans, and welcome into episode 118 of the Tech Sideline podcast, originating from TSL's high-tech studios in the Virginia Tech Corporate Research Center. Whether you're watching live on Facebook, archived on YouTube, whether you're listening on Apple Podcasts or SoundCloud, however you consume the Tech Sideline podcast, we're so glad that you could join us today on Monday, February 17th, again, episode 118. A lot to discuss today. We'll start off the podcast by breaking down Virginia Tech's win over Pittsburgh inside of Castle Coliseum on Saturday. The 5-game losing streak is over, and we'll get the thoughts from Will and Chris in just a couple of moments. Plus, we talk about spring sports, softball and baseball well underway, women's basketball, another big ACC win on Sunday against Wake Forest. And, of course, at the end of the show, we'll get your Facebook Live questions read to both Will and Chris. Again, today, we've got the best crew in the land. We've got the best producer in the land behind the scenes producing, Malcolm Stewart. On the podcast set, our managing editor, Chris Coleman, our founder and general manager, Will Stewart, and I'm your podcast host, Evan Hughes. Again, a reminder that this week and every week, the Tech Sideline podcast is brought to you by the Fisher Law Firm. They're Virginia's trusted DUI and traffic defense firm, dedicated to defending individuals charged with traffic-related offenses. From their office in Blacksburg, they are able to serve the entire Commonwealth of Virginia. Whether you are charged with driving under the influence or speeding, the Fisher Law Firm realizes that each case is important to the client. To date, the firm has defended more than 30,000 people charged with moving violations. For a free consultation, call anytime, day or evening, toll free at 1-800-680-7031. Again, that's 1-800-680-7031, or you can email them at info@fisherlegal.com. With that, good morning to all of you. Again, thanks so much for joining us. Evan Hughes, Malcolm Stewart, Will Stewart, Chris Coleman. Guys, how are you doing?
Good. I'm loosening up. Got to get the neck ready for the show. Big show. Big show.
How's your weekend, Chris?
Pretty uneventful.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is good.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Will, is that a new shirt?
No, it's not. It's a new shirt for the podcast. It's not a new shirt for me.
And look, Will takes a lot of pride in his wardrobe for these podcasts. New shoes. I actually have the same shoes I really like. New shirt. The watch.
You got to change it up, man.
Maybe if we make it viral, we'll have our own wardrobe, like the TSL. Like go into Macy's and there's the Tech Sideline.
Well, we do need a wardrobe in here. That we can pick stuff out of. Yep, you're right.
Well, again, a lot to get to today. I'll remind you, if you're watching live on Facebook right now, be sure to drop your questions. Malcolm will read them at the end of the podcast. We'll get the thoughts from Will and Chris on those questions. We'll get to women's basketball, baseball, softball, and a little bit later. But we begin the Tech Sideline podcast, episode 118, talking about Virginia Tech men's basketball, snapping a 5-game losing streak on Saturday. The Hokies with a 10-point victory, 67-57 winners over Pitt Panthers. Will, we've talked about this team over the last 3 weeks or so in the midst of this losing streak, what needed to happen. The Hokies got hot. They found a way to get the win. What did you make of the win for Virginia Tech?
I think I might have lost my mind if they'd lost to Pitt. Chris and I were doing the preview. What day was that? Thursday, Friday? Friday we were doing the preview, and I read the preview. And I just I don't memorize names and stats and all that stuff. I just got the feeling reading it that I was reading a preview of Tech playing Boston College, and I was thinking about how Tech had lost 2 to Boston College, and I was like, please don't lose to these guys too. I don't want to say these guys like to insult Pitt, but Pitt's record's fairly solid, but they're really not a good basketball team. They do some things well. What's that?
They can't shoot.
They can't shoot. They drive to the hole pretty well. I think they play some decent defense, but they can't shoot.
I think Mike Young said coming into the game they shot 29% from deep.
Well, he said in ACC play it was 39% overall and 29% from three-point range. Yeah. And so during the game, they start out making three of their first 4 from three-point range. So I start tweeting, "Oh yeah, I'm keeping track of this stat." And then they went in the tank after that. They only made 2 of their last 17. So that was actually a big part of the win was Pittsburgh just couldn't score.
Yep. Chris?
Well, they were who their statistics said they were.
Thankfully.
No, what was the name of the Boston College player that had that crazy 21-6 just came out of nowhere in the overtime game?
Yeah.
Pittsburgh didn't have any of that.
But they didn't have anybody do that for sure. They got a couple players on their team that Tech really wanted, I think. McGowan's was heavily recruited by
Talking
Tech.
about Pittsburgh now?
Yeah. Was heavily recruited by Buzz, I believe. So they got some pretty good players there. I think Jeff Capel's a solid coach, but I don't know that he's a great coach. He started out coaching at VCU, And, I know VCU fans don't want to hear this, but that's an easy program to win at, relatively speaking.
Set up for success.
And then he goes to Oklahoma, and they get put on probation, and don't know how much success he had there, except for the couple of years he had Blake Griffin. But he's actually done better at Pittsburgh.
So Capel coached Griffin?
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah,
wow.
Correct.
And then they got put on probation.
Wow.
Yeah. They're a completely mediocre basketball team. In fact, if this was a regular year in the ACC, they'd be considered a bad basketball team. Them, Boston College, probably Tech. I mean, there's a whole bunch of teams in this year's league that in any other year would be down a peg or two.
Sure.
Yeah.
But the ACC.
So there's a lot of bad teams in this league who have benefited from there being other bad teams in this league.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
There's a way I would put that. A lot of teams winning games that otherwise wouldn't win unless there were
no doubt.
lots of, and I rag on Boston College, but I think let me look at the ACC standings here. BC they're 7-8 in the conference.
Correct, but they're 12-12 overall, right?
Right. So I don't like that. Does not look good for the ACC when you can go.
BC should have like 3 wins right now, if that.
Yeah. So they barely have a winning record out of conference, and they almost have a 500 record in conference.
Right.
And they beat NC State last night.
Oh, did
NC State shot 2 of 19 from 3-point range.
Oh, well.
At Boston College.
Where have I heard that before?
Yeah,
it sounds like a
NC State is due for a game like that every year. It seems.
It was at Boston College. You know how Boston College is, man. You go up there and there aren't many people there, and it just has a weird effect on teams. I think State is a better basketball team than they played last night. So
you were saying that somebody was due. Talking about the team. How about someone due for Virginia Tech to kind of break out? And that was P.J. Horn, 18 points. Only had 1 rebound, but he had 18 points. He was 4 of 6 from deep. And Chris, I was watching the condensed version of the game last night, and there were moments late in that second half felt like Pittsburgh was starting to chip away and make their run. And Horn just continued to bury threes that really solidified the win for Tech.
He had back-to-back threes, and there was a layup by Pittsburgh in between those threes.
I looked at him. Those threes were 30 seconds apart, exactly 30 seconds apart.
Right.
So he had 6 points in 30 seconds.
And the second one, when he first shot it, I was like, what are you doing? Run
some clock.
Run some clock, yeah. So I'm not even sure that was like a good basketball play, but it went in. Thank goodness. And he needed to get a few to fall, of course. Between him and John Ogiaco, Virginia Tech centers combined for 22 points and 10 rebounds in this game.
Nice.
Yeah.
I've never really paid attention to PJ's form when he shoots a 3-pointer.
It's funny,
but those 2 that he made towards the end of the game. By the way, who assisted on both of those?
Was it Beatty?
Landers Nolly
on
both of those. Nolly had a really rough shooting game, but his rebounding in particular has been really good lately, and I think he's always been a pretty good passer.
I was keeping up with his rebounding, and he had I think he had 4 by the first media timeout, or maybe 5.
Yeah.
So,
but getting back to how PJ shoots his threes, he actually, at least those 2, he shoots flat-footed, feet apart, like shoulder width. So it's not so picture yourself, Jalen Cone's in one side of the frame shooting a 3-pointer, and PJ Horn's in the other side of the frame shooting a 3-pointer, and these 2 things look nothing alike. Horn's form from out there is, shall we say, not textbook. So it's not surprising that he's inconsistent from out there.
Hokies from the 3-point line shot 32 threes in the game against Pittsburgh. They made 12. So Horn was 4 of 6, and then Jalen Cone 4 of 5. And Will, I'll ask you this. I mean, feels like Jalen Cone's come a long way from the beginning of the season when he was kind of coming off the bench, Coppin State, those early games. And now it feels like he really is the Energizer Bunny coming off the bench, it feels like. Do you feel the same way? He gives a spark?
If that guy was 6'3" to 6'5",
he wouldn't be here.
Man, he just I don't want to get too carried away talking about Jalen Cone, but I just think he's an elite shooter. That guy, the way
55% or so from
and just the form and the elevation. The hard part is making sure you get him open. And I think as Tech gets more experience, at least I hope this is the way it unfolds. If they get more experience running this offense and they get some post players and passers in there like they want, I think they'll really be able to leverage Cone's ability to shoot the three. They'll be able to get him open more often. He's just a phenomenal shooter. I love watching that guy shoot.
Yeah. What do do you like Cone coming off the bench because of what he? I think Mike Young has talked about how he likes having a dynamic scorer come off the bench and able to spark the offense.
I never really cared one way or the other about a set starting five in basketball. I mean, it's a 40-minute game.
Yeah.
You're going to need 8 or 9 guys to contribute. If one guy gets hot, then leave him in. You know, so to me, yeah, I mean, I think he'll be a starter for Tech one day. I don't think you would necessarily want him and PJ Horn on the court together a whole lot, because that makes you. I mean, Tech's already small, and then you just double down on small.
Yeah.
Because you got 5'9" and 6'5".
Yep.
So you know you've got to manage his minutes and his matchups and things like that. But yeah, he's an elite shooter, absolutely elite, and he's going to help Tech a lot. Danny Manning, I'm sure, will probably finally get fired from Wake Forest this year. And if you're a Wake Forest fan, you're sitting there saying, "Why isn't that like a guy like Jalen Cone playing for us?"
Because he's from really close to Wake Forest.
From Winston-Salem, right? Yeah. Why? Why have they let their basketball program drop so far that a player would leave Winston-Salem to come play for Virginia Tech instead?
You know, it feels like just yesterday that Danny Manning had Wake Forest in the NCAA tournament. They had John Collins.
John Collins had them in the NCAA tournament. Yeah. And that was still a play-in game. They barely made it.
Yeah. Correct.
They barely made it.
And Collins was a top 20 pick by the Hawks. I mean, so
John Collins was an awesome player. Yeah,
he was.
Yeah, and that was the only good year they've had at Wake under Danny Manning.
You know, someone who's really turning into a good player, I think Hokie Nation's really excited to see blossom, as well as the coaching staff, and that is John Ogiaco. He ends up playing 14 minutes, but 9 rebounds. Is it fair to say it's one of the best games of Ogiaco's career here at Virginia Tech on Saturday?
Yeah, you know, he doesn't get to play a lot, so we don't have a large body of work for him. But my take watching him is, I think his offensive skills at this point in his career are fine. You know, he's some post moves he's got. I've been pleasantly surprised when he's posted people up and made certain shots. Mm-hmm. I think where he's been an issue is defensively. You know, getting beat off the pick and roll, just being out of position. I think once he gets a better feel, and he also, for a guy his size, either does not focus on blocking shots or is just out of position to do it. So what I look for him as his career goes along is to get a better sense of where he needs to be when. Spacing, in other words. You know, here's a hole, I need to fill that in and be available, or the defense is rotating this way, I need to rotate over here. You know, that's the area where I want to look for him to evolve. I think he's a good athlete, you know, and he's a decent offensive player, and that part will get better. But 9 rebounds in 14 minutes surprised me, but because I didn't.
No, they missed a lot of shots.
Yeah, that's true, you know. But the thing is, usually I'll notice when a guy's doing a lot of something, and it was actually in reverse when I found out that Landers Nolley only had 6 assists. I thought, are you sure? Because I thought I saw at least 7 or 8, but no, he had 6.
That was my next question. I'll start with you, Chris. You know, Landers had such a strong game against Boston College in overtime. It felt like he shooting-wise. I mean, he shot over 50%, correct, against the Eagles?
For the first time since the BYU game.
And they lose that game, but he plays well. And then he comes back, 6 assists, 12 rebounds. Is this the best stretch of 2 games Nolley has had in the ACC this year?
As far as his floor game goes, I think it was his best two-game stretch, maybe. I'd have to go back and look at his numbers from, you know, Tech's first 5 or 6 games. But certainly recently, his best 2 back-to-back games as far as making the right decisions with the ball and things like that, for sure.
Yeah, it just feels like, again, you know, there were a couple of games, Will, where he had a couple of key turnovers. Go back to that Syracuse game when he turned the ball over. I think it was 3 times in 4 possessions when it was a 2-point game.
Yeah, you know, I haven't paid attention to the turnovers lately.
But only one. And so, again, 12 boards, 6 assists, 1 turnover, 1 block, 2 steals, 7 points. I mean, did a little bit of everything.
Game. Man, I wish he could have scored 20 or 25 points to go with all that. And I keep saying, I watch that guy, and he seems to get along well with his teammates. He seems to enjoy doing all the things on the basketball floor, not just shooting the ball. Right. You know, he likes dishing to his open teammates and things like that. I keep hoping that, you know, his dad said he's going to go pro, whatever that means. I keep hoping he'll change his mind.
Well, if you want him to change his mind, you better stop hoping he scores 25 points.
Yeah.
You better hope he has more 3 of 15 shooting performances if you want him to come back next year.
Or maybe I don't know. It's tough because in order for him to be convinced he needs to stay, then he needs to perhaps play more poorly than he has.
The way I see it, like I don't root for Virginia Tech players to have a bad game or anything like that, of course, but like Virginia Tech next year's Virginia Tech team has a higher ceiling than this year's team. Yeah. That's a straight up fact.
That
right?
is not in question.
Part of miracle, this Tech team is not going to go to the NCAA tournament. Next year's can. If he had a bad final, how many games we got left? 6?
5 or 6, yeah.
If he was just like awful the rest of the season, that could make Tech a better team next year.
6 games.
I know. And then Virginia Tech's going to be better next year, but you got to figure the rest of the ACC.
That's the thing. That's the thing. That Pitt team, Tech brings everybody back. Pitt brings everybody back, right? And you got UVA brings almost everybody.
Duke
back.
reloads.
Carolina's been handing out wins like candy. They're going to stop doing that.
Exactly.
That's a topic for another podcast. But wow, UNC just continues to find ways to lose close games.
Well, that was a heck of a shot by UVA there at the end. I don't even know who made it.
But you got to Wake Forest will be better coach next year. You got to assume.
Yeah.
This league is not going to be like it is this year.
Yeah, I think probably the only coaching change that's coming in the ACC that we can see right now is Danny Manning at Wake Forest, right? Or you have to assume that everybody,
you never
unless
know
someone leaves.
Well, you never know when BC will pull the trigger.
Jim Christian. Jim's his first name, right?
Yeah.
He has really benefited from a bad ACC this year.
Well, no. Well, the other view of that is, look, man, this is the worst the ACC is ever going to be, and you're 12-12, and we can't even make it, even the NIT.
Yeah.
So that's going to be.
Did you see when they beat Tech last Saturday? It's the first time they've beaten an ACC school twice since 2012 in a season.
Thanks for that.
Well, you remember there was a year where they didn't win a game in ACC play in basketball or football. Oh,
yeah.
That's a whole nother topic. We could dedicate a podcast to that.
We could.
Swafford.
We're going to wrap up the men's basketball conversation. 2 more topics. Last player I want to hit on is Tyrese Radford because he leads Tech in minutes, with 36. His final stat line, 8 points, a steal, a block, 4 assists, 3 rebounds, 2 of 2 at the line. He was 3 of 5 from the field. How do you think we will remember Tyrese Radford? Do you think he's the kind of guy 10, 12 years from now when someone asks the questions, who's your favorite basketball player? Do you think Tyrese Radford will leave that legacy of just being a unique player?
He is going to live in the same space in your head that Jamon Gordon lives in, is how he's going to be.
That's Chris's favorite player, I believe, right?
Him and J-Rob.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jamon, and maybe Chris can fill in the blanks here, I remember one time he had like a 16-rebound game against Wake Forest or something like that.
And he said if he was in high school, if he'd had a 16-rebound game, the coach would have made the center run laps.
right.
That's very funny.
That was him calling out Coleman Collins on the radio without actually calling out Coleman Collins.
Now, I don't know if Tyrese will ever be as quotable as Jamon was, but, what was – gosh, he's got so many quotes. Somewhere we've got the wit and wisdom of Jamon Gordon saved on somebody's hard drive somewhere. We've got to pull that up. But that's where he's going to reside. Before he's done, he will have, if his career continues to go on this track, and Mike Young said, I think he said after the game Saturday, Chris said, I don't want to take that guy out. He needs to stay on the floor. So if his career keeps going along this track, he will have games where he will do things like have 20 rebounds or something crazy like that.
I don't know if he'll ever have 20 rebounds.
I don't know, man.
What's the 13 against Wake Forest? Is that his season high, I think?
That, yeah.
Even Jamon at his best, air quotes, only had 16.
Jamon was bigger. Like, Tyrese is not nearly as big as Jamon. Jamon was a legit 6'3", 215 pounds.
Yeah,
Tyrese
that's true.
Tyrese is like 6'5", 6'1".
And athletically, they're very similar.
They are pretty similar.
I'll always remember.
He's already got that dunk that everybody identifies.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. I will always remember him for the player he is, but the moment, unless he has another dunk over a 7-foot center at the rim.
On the game winner against UNC. So he's already had a couple of big key moments.
Yeah. Sure.
So that's my take on Tyrese Radford.
All right, so last thing on basketball before we move on. You mentioned how many games are left. The Hokies have 6 games remaining. The schedule looks like this. Wednesday at home against Miami, 9 o'clock tip-off.
Is that on RSN?
That is on
Regional-
the ACC network.
Yes.
Actually,
I think it's RSN.
I think it's RSN
RSN
as well.
Yeah. That's what we've got. That's what we've got on our schedules.
Yep, you're right. It has the ACC striped signal conference.
I
game
know
on the
it's
website.
confusing.
So I apologize. So RSN, that's 9:00 Wednesday. At Duke, number 7 in the country on Saturday. Home against UVA at 7:00 in Castle Coliseum next Wednesday. And then number 5, Louisville, then Clemson, and then Notre Dame to close out the season.
Oof.
Tech, 6-8. Any chance of an NIT berth?
Sure.
And what do they need to do in your estimation?
I honestly have no idea because I don't know what other teams are doing. I haven't checked an NIT bracket or an NIT bubble.
Are there
recently.
NIT projections?
Yeah, generally they come a little later, but it's with the fact that teams from smaller leagues are guaranteed bids to the NIT these days. If they get upset in their conference tournament, there's no way to predict that. I could sit here and say, though, this number would absolutely do it. But then if 3 more of those teams get upset than expected, then that throws it out the window. So, I mean, I really don't know. I mean, I would like to think that like 18 wins would do it, but I really have no idea.
So what's the overall record right now? Is it 15-10?
Yeah.
Yep, and then 6-8 in ACC.
To me, I just want to finish with a winning record.
Well, you know.
Do they play 30 regular season games exactly? Or no, if they're 15-10 and they got 6 left, so that's 31.
They'll play 31, yeah.
So they could be 16-15 at the end of the regular season, and then if they lost in the ACC tournament, they'd be 16. So I'd like to get to 17 wins personally. 17 wins would guarantee a winning record.
So to get that, your best chances are Miami. I don't know about Notre Dame. John Mooney.
Chris Mooney at Richmond?
No, the guy who plays for Notre Dame who leads the ACC in double doubles.
I don't know his name.
He's got 20 double doubles on the season, and I got a bad feeling about going on the road to Notre Dame with a guy who's that productive. But Miami Wednesday night, I still think UVA is beatable in Castle Coliseum.
Yeah.
This is a projection from dratings.com. Projecting the NIT. Now, granted, this was on February 9th, so it doesn't show the Hokies' most recent win against Pittsburgh, but it does not have Virginia Tech in the NIT. Right. Actually, you know what? And that's why I don't look at things. That was from 2019. Right. So, not even an accurate
By the way, I'm laying down this law right now. This is the only year where we're allowed to believe that the NIT is acceptable.
Gotcha.
Yeah. You want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, the NIT doesn't mean
we
anything.
talked about this, the fan base, before. How it's
the NIT used to be a bigger deal when Virginia Tech was in a smaller conference. Like the I guess no, they were in the Metro when they won the.
Yeah,
but they weren't in a major.
That
conference.
Was their last year in the Metro when they won it in '95.
Right, but it's just
NCAA tournament
with the focus on the NCAA tournament these days. Nobody pays attention to the NIT. It could. Like Virginia Tech fans are the only people that know Virginia Tech.
They have warm fuzzies about the NIT.
Right, exactly, because we won it a couple of times. It's time to get over that. If you have NIT dreams, then that means you'll never achieve what you can as a program.
No, I enjoy going to NIT games because they're general admission and they're generally well attended and they're a lot of fun.
In my opinion, I think they would be well attended this year. But remember, by the end of Seth Greenberg's tenure, how they weren't well attended.
That's right.
Right. Yeah.
I think if Tech makes it this year, though, it would be
it would be a major
right?
accomplishment. Yes.
Yeah.
Like I said,
and it turnout. You think fans would come to it?
Yes. It'd be something to be proud of for this year because it's a bunch of freshmen. It would give them extra practice time and everything like that. But for most years, no, it's on.
So one last thing,
Sure.
I have historically said that Virginia Tech's basketball fan base is what I call fragile. And it comes from basically 20 years of losing from the late 80s till Seth Greenberg started winning in the mid 2000s. Mm-hmm. I'm not seeing that this year. I'm seeing good, solid attendance.
They lost 5 in a row, and I thought that was one of their best attended games of the year on Saturday.
Yeah, and the students have continued to. I wouldn't say they're filling up their end of the Coliseum,
right.
but they're showing up in good numbers. And Malcolm, is student seating general admission this year?
Yes,
so, yeah,
that's why they show up so early.
Smart.
Yeah.
And Mike Young again
pizza.
bought pizza for them. That's the third time he's done it. So
he couldn't have afforded to do that on that $200,000 a year Wofford salary.
That's right.
Yeah.
Hey, last thing.
Now that's his pizza budget.
Yeah.
I do need to close on the basketball on this. So it was finally Tech fans were able to invade the mentions of
Of
the
another
opposing
school,
team. I don't know
yeah.
if you and that has become kind of a tradition where like the North Carolina game, over 500 memes were put in North Carolina's mentions when Tech beat them. So
So if you're not on Twitter, the opposing team, and it started with the Clemson game, right?
well, yes, the Clemson was the first one. Then we continued on for football, and so I think it's going to stay for.
So Virginia Tech beats Clemson in basketball, and Clemson announces the score on their official Twitter feed, and the Tech fans pile in with pictures of Landers Nolly because he had a really good game.
Yep. So like, there's a picture of Landers on a trolley.
And the Nolly trolley.
The Nolly trolley. His
face on a train.
There's a picture of Mike Young serving ice cream and Jalen Cohn's face on the ice cream
That was
cone.
one of my favorites. Yeah.
And then Mike Young as a butler serving up, here's your L,
Your
sir.
L, sir. That's one of my favorites.
I was going to say, what are you? I mean, there's so many. So this, there was Hokey Dan on Twitter, I think his name is. He put a video out, Dan Steinbach, of he did the Star Wars theme. I don't know if you guys saw it.
I did. Yeah.
And it was from the top,
was good.
like greetings. Virginia Tech has finally snapped its 5-game losing streak, and Mike Young and the Padawans have did like a the crawling screen title with it. So, anyways, it was.
We can finally return to the mentions of opposing basketball.
Correct. I
teams,
think that our fans were.
That was the gist of the video. Yeah.
So I invite you to go to Pittsburgh's Twitter, find the last tweet, and you'll
I
be.
think Malcolm
thoroughly-
is feverishly working on trying to find it.
Yeah, let's see if we can pull it out. So for those that you can't see, so people are now putting some of their own friends on.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's like the bacon. Is that PJ Horn with horns?
With ram's horns on his head.
Oh my gosh.
Bacon, lots of bacon. Because,
yeah.
by the way, is that the most brilliant promotion ever?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just picture. There's a Valentine's picture of Landers Nolly crying Jordan meme on Jeff Capel.
The Hokey Bird with popcorn.
Yeah, I mean, people are going.
I'm pretty sure. Do they hand out vouchers for the bacon at the end of the game?
They do, yes.
The magic.
Apparently, it was so. Apparently, getting out of the Coliseum was so brutal on Saturday, so that they had run out of vouchers.
I know that me and my buddies left pretty late, and there was somebody. It was over on the. It was over on the
Malcolm, go back up.
Han Hurst basketball facility
Jesus.
side, and they were still handing them out.
What do you guys think about this one? Chris, look up real quick. How do you feel about Mike Young, his face on Jesus?
I can't remember that's a particular painting of Jesus that has a particular name and symbolism that I can't recall right now. But
anyways,
it's blasphemous,
Hokie
but it is
fans-
humorous.
Do you give them an A+ for effort, Will? The Hokie fans.
Oh yeah.
Pull up that one real quick. Hokies basketball.
So this is the most varied that I've ever seen the memes in the feed. At first, it was just a
seen
bunch
that
of
one before.
it was just a bunch of pictures of Landers Nolly and Jalen Cohn.
Anyways, there's SpongeBob memes. Anyway,
The UNC game they actually took to a different level. It was really, very good. But then they went on the 5-game losing streak after that and got out of practice.
But
Now
you can
they're
tell
back.
they've been saving them up.
Yeah. No
maybe
doubt.
we should work on a TSL meme at some point and put that on there. So, all right, that'll do it for men's basketball discussion here on the Tech Sideline podcast. Let's transition to kind of doing a little quick roundtable discuss. Yeah, somebody put a picture of me in the mentions. I don't even know who it is. Sorry, Malcolm pulled that up on the screen.
What does your shirt say? Collard greens?
Collard Greens? It's a local store in Richmond. Like a Vineyard Vines type. I know the owner very well. So that was actually my first day of school freshman year. But I had no idea who this person was. Poetic Formulae on Twitter. I have no clue who that person is and put that picture of me out there. So
Whoever it is, they're a big Mike Young fan.
yeah.
All right. So,
so
our listeners are hating this. Let's move on to the non-visual part of the podcast.
Let's transition now. Let's talk about women's basketball, baseball, softball, lacrosse. Just quickly, just discussing how the seasons have started for spring sports. Let's start with women's basketball, though, because the Hokies, I don't know if you guys saw on Thursday, they hosted Georgia Tech, and maybe the most thrilling game of the year for women's basketball. Tech's down 3 in the fourth quarter with 30 seconds left. Ball screen at the top of the key. Asia Shepherd wide open, buries a 3. Tech goes into overtime, beats Georgia Tech. And then on Sunday, they go to Wake Forest. And Wake Forest is a little bit better than they were last year. It's a good win, double-digit road win. So Tech now 9-5 in the ACC. And right now, I think they've all but locked up a chance to go play in the NCAA tournament.
I actually looked up a bracket, their women's bracket on ESPN over the weekend. I don't remember if it was Saturday or Sunday, so I don't remember if it was before the Wake win or not. But I had them as a 7 seed. So playing in the Coors. No, did I say Coors? I meant Stores. Stores, Connecticut.
Coors, Connecticut.
Coors, Connecticut.
Yeah, they're 19-6 overall, 9-5 in the conference.
They've got Notre Dame on Thursday.
Yeah, and the rest of their schedule is pretty favorable. Notre Dame is having a horrible year.
So typically you hear Notre Dame and you put them in the same conversation in women's basketball with UConn and Baylor. They went from really good last year to like lost everybody. I think they might even have a losing record. Like
they're 10-16 overall and 5-9 in the ACC.
Yep.
So
and it's so Tech they're favored at Notre Dame. They're favored against Virginia. Duke will be a really good game. They should be favored, but Duke's close in the standings, and then Louisville's really good.
Yeah.
So what's their best case scenario? Maybe
so they're 9-5. Their best case scenario
they
is 12
can beat
6.
Louisville if they play well. I mean, if they win, there's a chance they win. I think that they,
Well, they'd have to go on like overall like a 6-game winning streak to beat Louisville. That would include like a 6-game winning streak.
Correct.
Right.
No,
Maybe
7-game winning streak.
Yeah.
Because they beat,
I don't know if they've ever done that in ACC play.
Well, I think the big thing they've done recently is they have beaten North Carolina and Georgia Tech, two teams that were around them in the standings.
Correct.
Yeah. And even Wake Forest is kind of, well, not really. Wake Forest 6-9, Tech is 9-5. But they separated themselves. Well, they didn't separate, but they got an edge on teams that were around them in the standings.
But yeah, I mean, barring an utter collapse and a couple of like bubble teams out there going on a huge winning streak, Virginia Tech has locked up an NCAA tournament.
Yeah, so good for Kenny.
Yeah, and I think that they can compete with the best in the ACC. So come ACC tournament time, anything can happen, obviously. But again, the way Tech shoots the three ball, they're hot. I mean, they're just so good in transition. I'm telling you, if you've not gone to see them play this year, they are a fun basketball. You watch North Carolina game. I mean, they just play an exciting brand of basketball.
Yeah, and Kitley's just a really good post player and just a freshman.
I really hope they can get off that 7-2 line.
Yeah, maybe. Well, if they keep winning,
6 seed,
could get to a 6. Yeah,
that'd be more ideal in my opinion.
All right, I want to transition to spring sports quickly. I want to start with softball because Virginia Tech softball went down to the St. Pete Clearwater Elite Invitational. This is the Maui Invitational men's basketball tournament on steroids, as I've been saying.
And there is no Chaminade there,
There's
right?
no Chaminade.
No Chaminade, no.
Yeah.
It is just I think it's the biggest non-conference tournament of the year. You have to be invited to play. And during the Women's College World Series last year, Tech was invited as the last team in. So basically one season, Tech winning 47 games a year ago, was enough to get them into this really well-respected tournament.
Yeah.
And so they opened up. Tough loss against 16th ranked Oklahoma State. Lost 14-6.
Carrie Eberle.
Carrie Eberle came in for the save. Former ACC Pitcher of the Year, transferred to Oklahoma State. But it was really there was a moment
that was weird.
She, I think there was a grad school program that Oklahoma State has.
Right.
Was the
for forensic analysis or something like that.
But it was really cool. So her catcher Mackenzie Lauder, when she was at Tech, when she came up to hit, she paused and gave her a hug in the middle of the game. It was cool. But tough one to drop. They come back. Tech was borderline ranked. They were like 26. They beat 18th ranked, 17th, whatever poll you look at, 18-17 South Carolina 8-6. They were up 5-1 against 19th ranked Missouri, fell 6-5. And then the last two games, they play 14th and 13th ranked Minnesota, win 2-1. And then they play Northwestern, a team that made it to the Super Regionals last year, beat them 6-5 in 8 innings. They were ranked 21st. So they go 3-2. They should be ranked this week. And I mean, 3-2 at this tournament, considering they really could have been 4-1. I mean,
who was that first team?
Oklahoma State. And they had a great weekend.
No, sorry. I said, who was the first team they beat?
South Carolina.
South Carolina, right. And the South Carolina's ranked.
Correct.
Yes, all right. So that's 3 ranked wins
over
the weekend.
Yep.
Right. So 3-2 against ranked teams.
2 ranked losses.
All games they played were all ranked teams.
Right. So Tech was probably the cannon fodder of this tournament as the unranked team, right?
They were, I think, ranked 26th as one poll coming in.
You're right. You're right. I looked it up last week.
So how many teams are in this tournament?
So I think it was 16. So you don't play everybody there.
Wow.
I mean, but Alabama, Florida State, UCLA, Washington. I mean, so it was really cool. ESPN puts this event on, and so it was on ESPN too. The whole Team USA was there, scrimmaging. So Liberty was there, JMU was there, Tech was. I mean, and then all the big and Tech. I looked at who JMU was playing a couple of. I mean, Tech played a really tough schedule. They didn't play Kansas. They didn't play Texas Tech. They played all ranked teams and went 3-2. They really could have gone 4-1. It was a really good weekend for Keely Rochard. And then this freshman, keep your eye on this name, Kaylee Hewitt, was huge down the stretch for Tech in the circle.
So when they get into the NCAA tournament, so that first weekend, it'll be 4 opponents in a regional. 2 of their 3 opponents in that first weekend could be less difficult than any of their opponents this past
right.
Yeah, that's right. The regional could be easier than this tournament.
And the RPI this year for Tech should be really good when you're going and playing these teams.
So they still go on RPI, right? They haven't don't even the women's basketball team still use the RPI and not the net?
I have no idea.
I do know that softball, soccer, like you said, really big on the RPI. RPI very important.
Boo.
So, but anyways, that's the update on softball. So Tech overall on the year, they've played in 2 tournaments. They're 7-3. 3 wins against ranked opponents this weekend in Florida, and then coming up they go to Charleston. They've got Army, Dartmouth, Bradley, North Carolina A&T, and College of Charleston again this weekend. So
all right.
That's the update on softball. Transition over to baseball. Virginia Tech baseball underway this weekend in Conway, South Carolina, hosted by Coastal Carolina University. 2 close games. Tech falls. They were going to play 3. Rained out yesterday against Coastal. They fall 7-5 to San Diego State on Friday, and then 7-5 to North Carolina Greensboro Saturday. They got excellent starting pitching, especially Friday from Chris Gerard. Went 5 1/3. 5 strikeouts, no walks. 4th inning, bases loaded. 3-2 count to the leadoff hitter. Struck him out in a really big pitch in that game. The story was Tech just 1 inning really hurt them. They were up 4-0 going into the 7th against the Aztecs. They played 5. So the bullpen struggled.
Well, there was a big error in that inning.
There was a ground ball to second. They could have gotten out of the inning with a 4-6-3 double play. Biddison bobbled it. They would have been up 4-3 had they turned that. And then Kevin Madden at third had an error at third, even though he came back and hit well. So just a couple of just really small moments in that game. And then North Carolina Greensboro was a 3-2 game going to the 7th. Tech had their chances, just left a couple runners on base. So 2 losses, but Ian Seymour, their ace, was scheduled to go yesterday against Coastal. Rained out. I think Tech's got, I didn't realize, so Tech's team ERA last year was just a sub-4. First time in ACC play it's been sub-4.
It was like the best team ERA since like the 80s.
1984, when Tech went 41-17. So the pitching staff.
So Tech's issue last year was they couldn't hit. They had a lot of freshmen in the lineup and everything like that. So I'm not sure about this year. It's baseball, so you can't get too upset about an 0-2 start because it's baseball.
Sure,
right?
50 games.
Yeah, exactly. So, but at the same time, it's a little bit disappointing because you don't feel like this is an 0-2 team that bringing back as many players as they brought back. It's disappointing to see the bullpen give up some runs like that. Gerard pitched a really good game. But at the same time, I was keeping up with this pitch track, and I looked at it in the 4th inning, and it was like 98 or something like that. And I'm like, oh no!
Oh no! Gerard only went like 68, I think. Simonelli the next day went 99.
Maybe that's the one I was.
Yep, I think they were trying to ease in Gerard. They didn't want their starters to throw a ton of pitches the first 2 weekends.
What did I see? I was looking.
I'll
at
confirm
live
it,
stats.
but I'm pretty sure.
Okay. Okay, then never mind. Then that's wrong on my part. Then I was looking at live stats, and I swore the pitch count was up there around 100, but I guess not. But at some point, you're going to want your starters to go a little deeper.
Yep.
But at the same time, you feel like at this point that you should have enough bullpen depth to close out, UNC Greensboro. I don't know anything about San Diego State's program.
San Diego State's a well-respected.
I just assume every program from California is good at baseball. Probably a fair assumption on my part.
So again, 0-2 start for Tech baseball. They play East Tennessee State tomorrow on Tuesday at 4:00. Their home opener.
February baseball.
Yep, and then they go to Louisiana this weekend. 3-game series with the Ragin' Cajuns. So, okay, and the last one before we get to our Facebook Live questions, a quick whip around on what's going on in Tech athletics. Lacrosse is underway. They are 2-1 on the year, opened up with a 17-10 win against Davidson. Then, big game for lacrosse. They have not, in program history, they've never beaten James Madison. JMU won the national championship in 2018. They went up to Harrisonburg last Wednesday. They lost 9-8 in overtime. Very close game.
So close.
And then they bounced back this Saturday with a 25 win over Liberty. So Tech Lacrosse is 2-1. They host Radford on Wednesday at 4 o'clock in the Beamer Barn on the ACC Network. Actually, then they go Elon, Cincinnati, and then open up ACC play against Louisville on February 29th.
Well, playing JMU that early and having it be a close game like that, that's obviously one of the nation's best programs in lacrosse right now. So that's a good sign, I think, of things to come.
They've got one of the best players in program history, I think, right now, too. Paige Petty, she's named to the Tewarton watch list, which is the equivalency.
What year is she?
She's a senior.
Okay.
But that's the equivalency of like the Heisman Trophy watch list. So she is a really talented player. They've got pieces coming back, and I mean John Song, what he inherited when he took over this program, where Tech Lacrosse wasn't where he has them now. I mean,
that's
light
night and day.
years.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
Good start for spring sports, and we'll keep you posted here on the Tech Sideline podcast. What we're going to do now is we're going to step aside for a break. When we come back, Facebook Live questions. You get to ask the questions. Will and Chris gives you answers. We'll do all of that coming up on the Tech Sideline podcast, brought to you by the Fisher Law Firm. Welcome back into the Tech Sideline podcast, brought to you by the Fisher Law Firm. Evan Hughes, your podcast host, with Chris Coleman, Will Stewart, Malcolm Stewart. We're glad to have you with us. All right, we talked about a lot of Tech sports. We got you update with what's going on in Tech athletics. Now it's time for one of our favorite parts of the podcast. That's where you get to ask the questions. Will and Chris will answer them for you on our Facebook Live part of the show. I turn it over now to Malcolm Stewart. Malcolm.
All right, so one of the first things you need to do is recap Office Space.
We were kind of saving that, right?
I actually totally forgot about it. All right, so I will make it quick. I don't want to bore everybody with talking about the movie.
So Evan finally watched Office Space.
So this has been, 2 weeks of bringing it up on the podcast. I've taken some heat for not seeing it. So I was with Tech Baseball this weekend. I watched it last night on the bus.
Now you have to be honest. If you didn't like it, say you didn't like it.
I am giving it a 7.5 out of 10.
Okay.
That's fair.
Okay? I thought it was really dry. I did get all of the... I got the copy machine. That was one of the funniest parts of the movie when he's like, I got something extra for you guys. And they just go on the field and they're holding the guy back. That was very funny. I really didn't like Mildred. Is that his name?
Milton.
I didn't like Milton. And there was one point in the movie where I was like, okay, it was really slow to really kind of pick things up.
Right.
And I was like, Milton is just bothering me. I don't know. I couldn't hear what he was saying.
Taste.
It's definitely an acquired taste. I think Mike Judge did his own little comic. Actually, I think that's what the movie's based on, his little comic sketch of Milton's character, and then they just built the movie around that character. The guy who plays Milton, I forget his name, he's actually a really good actor. If you go and look at his work, he's a very versatile actor. He plays so many different roles.
He has a ton of acting credits.
Yeah.
A ton.
Yeah.
And
didn't a lot of different roles.
Didn't Super 70s Sports put a picture of him up one time and said, this
is
guy
the guy who
makes
plays
every
Milton?
movie he's in better.
He was in Boardwalk Empire. I remember he played a big role in that. So that guy is actually an awesome actor. Probably deserves some kind of an award for his range in acting. Yeah.
So anyway,
there were, many other very he's sitting on the couch and next door neighbor all right, I'm coming over. He can hear word for word what he's saying. Or when he walks into the office and he unscrews the hinges and just knocks over the wall. And there were a lot of there was one point I was actually laughing pretty hard that the trainer in front of me on the bus kind of looked back and you forget about how quiet it is on those buses. All right, I'm sorry. I thought the ending was really good. I was happy with the ending. I thought that was the stapler and the shovel at the end was good. So I give it a 7.5. I think somebody said it best on Twitter. It was really overhyped. Or I'm sorry, not over. I'm sorry. I've been hearing so much.
Oversold.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it was good. I would watch it again. I would recommend it to somebody. And my last thing is, who is Michael Bolton, the singer, though? That's my question.
What, you don't know?
You don't know who Michael Bolton, the singer, was?
Wow.
So a big chunk of the movie you didn't even get.
Well, I understood that his name was after a singer.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
he clearly didn't like it, but I didn't know who Michael Bolton was. I had to look him up. I know now. I think
it's wonderful that Michael Bolton has been eradicated from the public consciousness in just the space of one generation. That's outstanding. What do you say about Michael Bolton,
Have you ever watched that?
Where do you start?
You've never seen the video, the Jack Sparrow video? God, what group was that? Michael Bolton was in this music video. You have to look it up.
Yeah.
It's a Jack Sparrow song.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's been a while since I've seen Pirates of the Caribbean, so
He just takes great songs and ruins them.
Michael Bolton.
Yeah, like I think it was Percy Sledge did the original version of "When a Man Loves a Woman." Outstanding.
That's right. I recognize that
R&B song. Well, Michael Bolton redid it, and he probably really shouldn't have. And he's just one of those people that, like how Rick Astley is good-naturedly mocked.
Yeah, I know Rick Astley.
Yeah, Michael Bolton, it's not so good-natured.
No.
You know what was really funny though, when they called him in and they're doing the reviews and like, oh my god, the Bobs are like, you're Michael Bolton.
No.
And he's like, oh yeah, I love Michael Bolton. He really hates Michael Bolton. Like, it was very funny.
Do you understand now how when Jerry Kill was hired, I used an Office Space meme in my article with the Bobs, the consultants.
Saying that Jerry Kill was the Bob.
Jerry Kill was the Bobs. I'm going to come in and make things more efficient. Yeah. Maybe recommend that a couple of guys move on.
Right. What exactly would you say you do here?
Well, that was so funny too with the other when he was like, I deliver the information.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's screaming, I have good customer service. I'm a people person. And he's getting all worked up. Gosh, so it was good. Again, 7.5. I don't really give a ton of movies 9s and 10s. So it was good. I would watch it again, and I highly recommend. So,
well, let's not wear it out, but I do. Probably my favorite line from the movie is when he says, "You've been missing a lot of work lately, Peter." Well, I wouldn't say I'm missing it, Bob.
And then he's talking to him for like 10 minutes. He's like, you know what? I'm done here. You know what? Thank you. He just stands up like, he's the one who ends the conversation.
Yeah, I'm leaving.
So, anyways, appreciate everyone playing along on Twitter. I put it out there on Twitter Wednesday. I got like 17 replies. So someone replied to me and said, you need to say that you love it. That's what people want to hear this morning. So
I know.
It was good.
All right.
Now to real questions.
All right, for real questions.
Everybody look at Malcolm on the couch.
Yeah. Stephen Malik, did you ever find out what was up with that weird offensive foul call in the second half where we got the ball back?
They just looked at the video apparently and just reversed the call, and said the Pitt player didn't give Tech enough space. I didn't know that you could do that.
So it was originally an offensive foul call.
Yeah, they called an offensive foul on Radford.
Yeah,
and
which I thought was a bad call.
Even the PA announcer announced it after the review was a foul on Tyrese Radford, but then they gave Tech the ball.
That's part of why it was so confusing.
Right. The PA announcer, I think, screwed it up.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was. I think it was actually ended up being technically a foul on Pitt.
So in the Boston College NC State game last night, NC State was down 1 and was on offense, and they turned the ball over. And the Boston College player, in the course of getting it under control and starting to go down court, now remember NC State's down 1, and with 13.1 or 4 seconds left to go, the BC player stepped out of bounds, not with the ball in his possession, and then he came back into bounds, and he was the next person to touch the ball. And you can't do that. That should have been a turnover, and that would have been a turnover with 13 seconds left. The refs missed it, and that player retrieved the ball, went in and dunked it with 7.1 seconds left to make BC up by 3 points. So now instead of NC State having the ball and being down 1, they have the ball with 7 seconds left to go and they're down 3, and they missed the 3-pointer. I just told you they went 2 of 19.
Right.
And so they reviewed that play, and you are not allowed to review an out-of-bounds play.
Oh, and they reviewed it when they shouldn't have. That's interesting.
I think that's one of the worst parts about replay is when there are things you can't review, but yet you're looking at it, and he steps out of bounds with 13.1 seconds to go. The call is right there, and you're not allowed to change it.
Right.
And
I think the XFL is showing us how it all should be done. Well, refs should have mics. We should be transparent.
I tell you what,
about the conversations that are having, so people know what's going on.
Yeah. My biggest impression from watching some XFL is it really brings home to your average person how fast that game, game of football, moves. When people criticize play calls, watch an XFL game and watch how fast everything happens.
Real quick, week 2, did you enjoy it again this week?
The XFL? Well, I was actually working in my basement and I had it on, so I wasn't watching it closely. The announcer, I think it was Joey Galloway, was doing the analysis on the game I was watching, and he had a good point. He said they didn't play any preseason games. The offenses are way behind right now. They're really struggling.
That's why a lot of low-scoring games, I guess.
And the other thing I will tell you is, since everybody's over-mic'd, they've got mics on players. They go into the locker room during halftime. What'd you tell your team? What'd you tell your teammates? And all these football players and coaches say is, we just got to start playing better. We just got to execute. Get start playing better. Turns out that when you stick a mic in their face constantly, they really don't have anything interesting to say, other than we just got to start playing better.
Well. Yes. Real quick, did you see the real quick total side note XFL? Because I want to bring this up. That Cam Phillips caught 3 touchdowns yesterday.
Wow.
I saw he caught the first one, but I didn't know that he went on to catch 2 more.
He caught 2 more, so he's got 4 touchdowns in 2 games.
I was actually having a conversation on Friday in the gym with somebody about this. The reason a second football league in this country is more possible now than it was when the XFL was out. First of all, of course, it's on ESPN, ABC, and all that stuff.
Fine.
So,
Yeah.
Right. So, Luck really got his ducks in a row, but before putting this network out there, it's well funded because of their advertising and everything like that. But there's more football. I don't want to say more football talent in this country now. There's more developed talent. These guys are getting developed better. I don't know that the linemen are getting developed better, but there's all these advanced passing camps and everything like that. Even these advanced kicking camps that guys are attending when they're starting at like 14, 15 years old. So the talent is a little more advanced and more developed. And there are guys that are not playing in the NFL right now that would have been playing in the NFL, 10, 15, 20 years ago and things like that. Cam Phillips, the perfect example.
Yeah.
Cam Phillips,
Virginia Tech's all-time receiver,
is not in the NFL, right?
Yeah.
But he is a star in the XFL,
And
probably the best receiver in the XFL.
He could work his way into an NFL deal.
He certainly could, and it wouldn't shock me if he did. But I think there's, I just think there's more developed talent in the game of football.
Well, and what it makes, when I hear you say that, what it makes me think of is you could probably create a second pro basketball league out of just all the wings and guards that exist out there in the basketball world. There's a phenomenal amount of talent between 5'8" and 6'5".
Yeah.
And
you can't. I mean, the G League. The G League is awesome. If you watch those guys play. I mean, I saw Justin and Robinson in PKs on Saturday night. He was back in town, but that dude plays in the G League. There was one game last week. He had like 20 in the first half or something like that.
Yeah.
And he's played in 2 or 3 NBA games this year. So he's very much a fringe guy who, at some point in his life, if he doesn't make the NBA, will make 7 figures overseas.
It's just like a story I was talking about Malcolm the other day. Great rec league player. Just sat the bench in AAU games, man.
I think that coach had it wrong. Malcolm's a star.
There's a
man.
whole lot of rec
starting
league
him at
talent
5.
out there.
I don't care who's on my team. Malcolm's a starter in my book. Hey, last thing about the XFL. I want to get back to the questions. I don't know if you guys saw, because like 99.9% of the time, you're 100% right. Put a mic in someone's face. Oh, we just got to execute better. Diana Rossini interviewed, I don't know if you saw this, Matt McGloin, former Penn State quarterback. He's the quarterback for an XFL team at halftime. And I think they're either shut out or they had like 3 points. I think they were shut out. And he goes, "What?" She's like, "What do you guys need to do better?" And he goes, "We need to change the whole playbook and the whole scheme."
Wow.
And he's so upset. Like,
that'll endear you to the offensive coordinator.
So he goes into the locker room and they come back, and I don't know if she talked to the head coach live on the air or off the air and said something like, "Did you hear what Matt said?" And so they told him, and then they show the conversation of the coach talking to McGloin about, like, don't say that. The first drive McGloin has in the second half, pick 6.
Oh.
And then they interview him coming off the field after he throws the pick 6 and eventually gets benched. I mean, I don't know how you can't be entertained with the XFL.
You can throw a pick 6 and not get benched, but you can't throw one after you shot your mouth off at the coaching staff.
So wait a minute, is that a Bull Durham situation where the coach called that on purpose to get him to throw a pick 6?
It was actually a really bad. There was a crossing route. And it was a really bad throw. Anyways, back to questions. I had to put that out there because that was very funny. So, Malcolm.
Jeff Davis, how many of the last 6 conference games do you guys see VT winning?
2.
Let's go through them 1 by 1.
Well, you got Miami at home. Please don't lose to Boston College twice, and Miami plays twice in the same season. Please.
Yeah.
All right, hold on one second.
The sad thing is that like Miami was basically without their 2 leading scorers the first meeting, and they still beat Tech.
Tech didn't
So-
even show up.
Right.
Miami at Duke,
Nope.
Virginia,
Maybe.
number 5 Louisville,
Nope.
No.
Clemson,
Maybe.
who loses to everybody they should lose to, but then they beat
beats
like the big time
Louisville.
schools,
Yeah.
and then Notre Dame.
I think you can squeeze 2 more out of Miami, UVA, Clemson, and Notre Dame.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And if they can win 2 more, like I said, that would guarantee a winning record, I believe.
That's right.
Yeah.
Overall, not
They
ACC.
would be 17-14 at the end of the regular season.
8-12 in the
So-
ACC.
Right. So even if they lost in the first round of the
The
ACC
ACC
tournament and then made the postseason and lost in the first game of the postseason tournament, they'd still be 17-16. So to me, that's the goal, is to have a winning record for the 4th straight year.
Yeah, so I see 2 sure losses in Louisville and Duke. I see a tough game in UVA. I think the next toughest game is probably at Notre Dame.
Yeah, it's so hard to say. I don't know about Notre Dame's team. I know they lost by 34 to Duke. I mean, I don't know what's happened to Mike Bray's program. This will be their 3rd year in a row without.
It might just be a talent issue. I think he's.
I'm sure it's a
coach.
talent issue.
3 years in a row.
I believe so.
Wow.
Yeah, I know when the God, who was that guy that
Bonzie Colson.
Bonzie Colson, when he got hurt that year.
And
Oh,
came,
man.
Remember when he came back in the ACC tournament against Tech?
And we're up by 20?
And Tech was up by 20, and then they came back and beat Tech.
that was a
That they would have been an NCAA tournament team that year if they had had Bonzie Colson all year,
Correct.
but they weren't.
They had
And then
Colson and Pat Connaughton, who's now in the NBA.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. And then they weren't an NCAA tournament team last year, and they're not this year. So this is very unlike a Mike Bray program to not make the NCAA tournament for 3 straight years, which is another reason the ACC's down.
Yeah.
Good question, Mike. Thank you.
Jeff.
Jeff. Sorry.
Oh,
Sorry,
it's Jeff.
Sorry, Jeff.
Last one so far from Wayne Shepard. How much of an impact did Fuente talking to Baylor have on getting administration to consider committing more funds to football facilities?
Pretty darn big.
Or was most of what the school was doing to stay competitive already in motion?
Oh,
Well-
let me take this.
Sure.
one. I think there's already a $350-400 million athletics fundraising campaign. It actually started with the university-wide fundraising campaign, which was announced last October. They're going to roll it out, the athletic part of it out in the next month or two and provide more visibility to it. I'll answer it this way. That was going to happen regardless, and it's going to include scholarship money, Castle Coliseum money, the Student Athlete Performance Center.
Whit Babcock actually had a tweet about this on Saturday after the game.
So we'll get that in a second. But I think that there's going to be a ramped up football component to it that they may not have really been planning on.
Right.
So that's how I'll answer that.
Yeah. Ultimately, I don't know. I mean, Whit Babcock knows. I do think it made the administration, the Board of Visitors, maybe a little more aware of where they were. To me, I hope it raised some awareness in the fan base, because I believe in transparency. I don't believe in putting your head in the sand and pretending that everything's all rosy and good like it was in the good old days, and not accepting some certain facts that make it more difficult to compete than it once was. I think if you do that, you're more likely to get left behind. I think the fans need to know the issues, and then they can decide for themselves whether they want to take those issues on or not.
Well, fans respond to competition, and we saw this when the Drive for 25 was announced, and Whit rolled out all those stats about what percentage of Virginia Tech living alumni donate to athletics, how much money Tech was raising relative to their ACC peers. You put those numbers in front of people, and they get motivated.
Right,
you know?
and we did see a substantial increase in Hokie Club donations. It petered out after a while.
Yeah,
but the initial run was good. I think what they were 4%. They were at 4%.
now they're like 5.5.
Now they're 5.5 or 6, which doesn't sound like a lot.
That's
but
a big deal.
That's a big deal. So let's say they've increased it from 4% to 6%. That's a 50% increase.
Yeah.
Right. I mean that's a big deal. So
I mean, at one point, Hokie Club membership was down below 10,000.
Right.
And it's up around 16 or 17,000.
Right. So they get criticized a lot.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and say, while yes, we absolutely agree, there need to be some improvements, some major improvements. But it's not like they've done nothing. Yeah. Tech is in a much better spot right now than they were 4 years ago, before the drive for 25. So they're in a rut right now because they don't have anybody in charge of the Hokie Club.
I'll just bury this here at the end of the podcast. There's been a culture of criticism and second guessing and anger directed towards the Hokie Club and maybe fundraising in general. Maybe Virginia Tech's athletic department. That narrative needs to change. People need to take the approach of okay, if we are behind in certain areas, what can we do? How can I help?
Right.
That's the change that needs to occur.
Right.
And I think I get it. When you reveal these deficiencies to your fan base, then they start pointing the finger at you and criticizing you. So I understand the reticence there.
Right.
But that viewpoint and narrative needs
to
change.
It does. And right now I would encourage everybody to just chill out about that, because as Witt alluded to in his tweet, there's going to be a major announcement as far as football and basketball facilities. There is going to be new leadership in the Hokie Club, probably within the next couple months, very soon. So you can complain and complain and complain about it, but nothing's going to happen until those two things get announced.
Right.
So I would encourage everybody to just drop it right now. And when those two things are announced, then circle back around and see what they look like, judge things then. But right now, just chill out.
Yeah.
What is that saying? Like, if you put out like a negative, like come up with a positive or something, or like a solution, be a part of the solution.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we are right at an hour, so I want to wrap up the podcast there. Yeah, great questions as always. Jeff, sorry for getting your name wrong there. Thanks for the question, Jeff. Will, I typically ask this question to Chris, but I'm gonna direct it to you. What's coming up on Tech Sideline this week?
So I am going to write an article, subscriber article here this week called, I've already got the title for it. It's called Unhinged. And it is stories from behind the lines here at TSL about Virginia Tech fans that came unglued and how they behaved. And it's some message board stories, some email stories, and some of the stuff that I'm going to describe, some of the people on our message boards have seen it and are familiar with what I'm going to talk about. But some of the stuff that happened via email, they're not.
How far back are you going to go?
I don't need to go very far back, just this football season. From the beginning of this football season until literally this past weekend, some of the stuff that happened on our message boards and some of the stuff that was directed to me via email, fans just coming unglued. So there'll be some interesting stories there that I don't want to clickbait it, but it'll blow your mind. It will. So I'm just going to put that out there. I hesitate to write articles about TSL, but usually when we write the articles, the fans love the look under the hood and behind the scenes. They enjoy it. So that's coming up from me sometime this week. I'm not going to put a day on it.
CC, what's coming up this week?
I'm going to probably do another scouting report or two, take a look at the defensive recruiting class for 2021 and what it could look like. Probably have a hoops article hopefully in there too.
Nice.
Yep.
Cool. All right. Well, that's going to do it for episode 118 of the Tech Sideline podcast. As always, thanks so much for joining us, guys. Any final thoughts before we sign off?
Looking forward to a good week. So the weather, like as far out as my app goes, it's just still not going to be cold and snowy so far. It's rained a lot. I'm so glad that wasn't snow.
Anything would be better than last week, that's for sure.
Yeah. So I'm thrilled with this winter as far as the weather goes.
Although I found out last week that I have a leak in my car.
Oh,
it took a nice.
I'm telling you, man, you need to get a new car.
I don't want to get a new car.
I
I never drive. My house is a mile from the office. Why would I get a new car?
Well, that's true.
That'd be
Yeah. Both of you guys have very nice cars. So, all right, that'll do it for episode 118 of the Tech Sideline podcast. Again, thanks so much for joining us. If you're watching on YouTube, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe. Please, means a lot to us. Make sure to follow us on social media as well. We're on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, all at Tech Sideline. Be sure to stay up to date with everything that we're pushing out on social media. Again, that'll do it.
By the way, if you're still listening, I'm probably going to advertise for a social media manager soon. We are good on Twitter. We're meh on Facebook, and we barely do Instagram. So I'm stewing up here that we got to have a person doing that.
We've got too many good pictures not to do Instagram.
I know. Now I don't need some super expensive consulting firm to step forward and offer to do it for me. It'll probably wind up being a student's job. So at some point I will say that we're going in that direction and we need help managing that part of our business.
Exciting times here at TSL. Again, thanks so much for joining us. For the best producer in the land behind the scenes, Malcolm Stewart, on our podcast, and our managing editor, Chris Coleman, our founder and general manager, Will Stewart. I'm your podcast host, Evan Hughes, saying so long. Thanks so much for listening and watching. This has been episode 118 of the Tech Sideline podcast, brought to you by the Fisher Law Firm. Have a great week.